You ready to make a big batch of throwback? I'm Kamaron Lockwood with Chowhound, and I'm gonna show you how to make a sangria and keep you from doing it wrong. Two main ingredients that we're gonna be using today is brandy and red wine. We're also gonna be using an orange, an apple, some orange juice, a little bit of brown sugar. First thing we wanna do is we wanna prep these ingredients. So we're gonna go ahead and just start preparing our fruits. I have my own way of doing it. The really important thing is you wanna leave the rind on. The rind's gonna have a lot of flavor. It's also gonna help keep the fruit from breaking down too fast, but it definitely helps make the flavor a little bit more complex. And really what I like to do is I like to slice my oranges just kind of into half moons like this. I'm gonna go ahead and do it with the whole orange. One of the big reasons for cutting it into half moons is I'm gonna get rid of the little end pieces that don't have a lot of the actual fruit in it. I'm just gonna discard those. And for me, what I like to do is I like to take this half moon and I like to cut it into quarters. It's just gonna be a lot easier to break down with the sugars once I add it all and I start muddling into my glass. Now, this can be very preferential to however you like the textures of your fruits to be. So I'm gonna put half of this in here and I'm going to put the other half into my vessel or container. Then I'm gonna grab my apple. I'm gonna do the same thing with my apple. Now, the really important thing to do with the apple is to make sure when you're cutting the apple, if you have an apple core, that would be great. Just make sure you actually core the apple or you just get rid of the seeds in the middle. You do not want to have any of those seeds going into the actual sangria. Now, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna cut it into similar size and depth, and that's just to keep things uniform for myself. And I'm gonna do this with one half of the apple. You can see very similar to the slices of the orange. I'm gonna put that first half in there, or the first quarter, and then I'm gonna quarter this again, and I'm gonna get the other half. When doing the orange and the apple, it's really important to try to keep those sizes the same. It makes for an evenness. It makes it so where you don't break one down more so than the other. It kind of helps us break everything down evenly. Now that we have this cut, we're gonna basically use half of the orange and half of the apple, and then the other half we're just gonna keep and we're gonna use it for garnish later. So I'm gonna set this off to the side. The next thing we wanna do is we wanna add our sugar. Now, I've chosen to use a brown sugar. I'm using about 4 tablespoons just because I typically like it. It's a little bit richer and I think it goes really nicely with the brandy and the wine, but doesn't mean you have to use that. If all you have around is cane sugar, you can totally use cane sugar. The important thing is to just make sure that you're using like a raw or a whole sugar. I think it just, instead of making it into a syrup or something like that, adds another nice level of texture. And it really is important to get that in the muddling process with the fruit. I think it really helps break down the sugars in the fruit as well. We're gonna add this to our fruit and we're gonna start muddling the fruit. It's important to muddle the fruit just lightly when you're making the sangria. And the reason why is it starts to break down the acids in the fruit and it turns those juices and it blends with the sugar, making just a nice basis for everything to break down a little bit quicker and more evenly. So that way when we add the spirit and we add the wine, we're kind of at a good starting point. You don't have to turn this into a compote or anything like that. It doesn't have to be crazy, but we are just trying to just help breaking down of the fruits and the fructose and making it a little bit easier to blend in with the spirits. Sangria has been around for over 2,000 years. It's derived originally from Spain, but it's enjoyed globally by many people. It really can be enjoyed all times of the year, but personally, I feel like it tastes the best when you're a little bit coming out of summer, going into fall, but it really is just preferential to where you are in the world, you know, what the seasons are like and what you prefer. Now that I have my sugar in, my fruits, and it's muddled, I'm going to go ahead and add my orange juice. I have 3/4 of a cup of orange juice here, pulp or pulp free, depending on the texture that you're going for. I'm gonna go ahead and just pour it into my mixture. Now we're going to add our brandy. I feel like a lot of recipes traditionally call for it. It's my #1 choice. You can also use a substitute such as rum. Brandy is made from apples, so it blends really well with this. And then rum is made from cane sugar and molasses. So it's already like just another spirit based on what's already in there. And I think that that's really gonna enhance it. This is a 1/3 cup. You can add a little bit more brandy, you can add a little bit more sugar. I think that this is a very good stable recipe as a starting point. There is a lot of leeway with these recipes, so you will have some room to experiment. So if you really like where this is going, but you think that you could make it a little bit better towards whichever way your taste buds prefer, feel free. We're gonna go ahead and add this. And the final ingredient is our bottle of wine. Now, most places and people will tell you, hey, get a Spanish red, get a Spanish semi-dry, something nice. Today we're gonna be using a semi-dry Valpolicella, which is an Italian wine. I know this wine will work. Don't get focused on it has to be these certain things. You know, like I said, people drink this all over the world. So this is gonna be doctored a lot of times, but a really important thing to note is that you're not gonna just wanna go to the store. You don't wanna just get a Moscato or anything that you see as like a sweet red. It's really important that there's a dryness to it. You know, it could be a little bit sweet. Even a Pinot Noir would work really well for this. The dryness definitely helps it from getting too sweet. And I think that balance is everything in any cocktail we make. This is a very, very good rule of thumb. Try to keep it, you know, relatively dry on the wine. So you might be wondering, when do I make this? You know, how much time, you know, should I leave up to my party to make it? How long is it gonna last? Well, I would say that it's definitely gonna be probably more enjoyable on the fresher side. That doesn't mean that you can't batch this ahead of time. I would not let this sit and, you know, drink it any more than after 48 hours, but it doesn't mean that it's gonna be bad after 24. And the final ingredient to this that really ties it all together is the dilution and the ice. For this recipe that I have, we're gonna add 1 cup of ice, and we're gonna get that stirring in and letting that kind of melt in with all this stuff, and it's gonna help dilute. And as a final note, you know, it's important to not stir it and drink it right away, but there's a happy medium here. Definitely want to make sure that you have time for the sugar to dissolve and break down and really just kind of finish rounding out all of the tastes and the notes. Probably 4 to 12 hour window is probably the best time to really enjoy it. I ended up putting it into a pour spout, but a lot of people really enjoy putting it into like a punch bowl or something with a ladle where they scoop out the fruit that's already in there. We can also serve it over ice, or we can serve it without ice. Now that I'm ready to enjoy my variation of it is I'm gonna add 3 slices of orange, 4 slices of apple. I'm gonna add a little bit of extra ice for myself, and I'm gonna enjoy. There you have it. So no matter the occasion, no matter the time of year, Sangria is gonna always remain a classic for everyone to enjoy. Salud.